Hey guys, it's Adam. Today I wanted to make a video a little bit different than the previous 3 or 4 videos that I have made on this channel. And I wanted to talk about my experience with New World, but more specifically, two concerns that I have that I think a lot of people have either thought about or they deal with whenever they play the game. But I think a lot of people haven't realized these things maybe, and also haven't really thought about them in depth and how it may be causing the game to lose a lot of players. So, as far as my experience with New World, I think there's a lot of positive things that I could say, and I think that the game has a lot of potential, and I've probably enjoyed it more than any other game I've played in the past. So much so that I've become interested in making videos on the game and the topic itself. And I probably would not be doing that if I didn't enjoy the game so much. So I think it would take far too long for me to explain all the things that I really enjoy about the game. So instead, I decided I just want to focus on these two concerns and kind of go into detail on them and some things that I think may be causing players to leave the game. So the first thing is related to small population servers. And I guess the easiest way to explain this would be to first say that no matter what server you play on, there's a lot of things that remain constant. And what one of those things is repair cost. So whenever you repair something, depending on how progressed you are in the game, relative to your gear score or yeah, just the kind of items you have, you're going to have to pay a certain amount of gold to repair your gear. And I believe that that remains constant uh, across all servers relative to your gear score. So a lower gear score takes less gold to repair your item, and a higher gear score takes more gold. And this will happen over time or just if you die. So I believe one death can be as much as maybe 60 or 80 gold when you're on the higher end of gear score. So the other thing that remains constant is taxes, and these will vary from location to location for trading or refining or crafting or having a home. And they're determined by the price or the tax rate that the owner of the territory sets it at wherever you're doing these things. So for the most part, not a lot of people on larger population servers think about these things too much, and rightfully so, because the the amount outside of having a house is really not that large unless you're dying all the time through doing something that causes you to die. So, but the reason it's important for a low population server is because I believe that there's a certain threshold that this game has been designed to work around. And when I say threshold, I mean a threshold of a certain player amount. The reason I say this is because the more players you have pumping gold into the economy, uh, the less you can purchase with your with your gold relative to these costs of all these taxes and repairs. So the reason this is, or the primary reason that it can be so important, is because of this thing that I have in the top right hand corner right here called Outpost Rush, which I'm sure plenty of people have played. So the server that I'm currently on, I don't believe it's had an Outpost Rush game for the previous 2 weeks. And with that being said, there are servers that are smaller than mine as well, and there are plenty that are similar in size. So Outpost Rush, I believe it's about 300 to 400 gold per person per game. And then the minimum people that a game can start with is 32. So if you multiply that by the amount of players in the game, that's a lot of gold being brought into the game. If you constantly have a game running every 15 to 20 minutes, and on some servers, I'm sure there are multiple games running at once. So basically, the reason this is important and the reason that I think the game could potentially be losing players due to low population servers is because there comes a point where there's so little gold coming into the game through things, because for the most part, gold can only come into the game through these faction missions right here. And it's worth mentioning that the first three of these you do a day. Uh, I believe they give you 10 times the gold. So this one right here would give me 81. This one would give me 165. This one would give me 69. And this one would give me 135. And this works pretty much anywhere for your first three missions of the day. So ideally, you want to do them in a high level zone. So this does allow for low population servers to bring a decent bit of gold into the game each day. Uh, but based on what we just looked at right there, I think the highest you could really expect to get from maybe Shattered Mountain or something would be like 500 gold every 24 hours from the 10x increase that you get from the first three faction missions of the day. And uh, with all the things that remove gold from the game, such as just uh, using your gear or refining things or really anything, and this isn't even beginning to talk about trying to buy and sell things, which uh, takes money or takes gold away from you personally, but not out of the game entirely. Uh, so yeah, as you can see, it's kind of difficult for people on these low population servers when we don't have these Outpost Rush games running. And the reason this is because there's constantly gold being removed through these repairs, and uh, there's just not enough coming in on some of these servers for people to be able to uh, continue playing the game. And this this is, I believe, this is a problem for a lot of people, and it could be causing people to leave the game. Uh, and one thing worth mentioning is that, of course, there's still invasions, there's still wars, but at times that can be limited to specific people. So it does become difficult when none of these games are running, and even through killing NPCs, depending on the gear score of the gear that you're using, it can be relatively close to break even as far as the amount of gold you can get from killing something and the amount that your gear deteriorates over time. So this is a way of looking at it from the individual player and the way that it can cause them issues. And I've experienced it myself, and I'm sure that there are other servers as well where it's worse off. And another thing worth mentioning is there are all these towns, and although I have no experience with it myself because I've never owned a territory, um, they cost a certain amount of gold to upkeep. So not only that, but if they want to upgrade a station, that's additional gold as well. I think it might be 10,000 or something that is just removed from the game. So when there's so little gold coming into the game and there's only an average of like 80 to 120 players a day at any given time, uh, it can start to become really difficult for these people to do uh, just about anything they want in the game. And the only other way that I can think of gold coming in would be salvaging things or potentially fishing for the treasure chests. But salvaging, I think it caps at about 3 gold per thing that you would salvage, and the fishing is anywhere from like 25 to 50 gold a chest, which is relatively rare. So realistically, this isn't a huge issue for someone who plays the game a lot, but it can be demotivating, I think, for a lot of players. And the main reason, or a lot of casual players, and the main reason that I'm like mentioning this or talking about this is because I think this could be causing a lot of people to leave the game based on what I've been looking at with the player counts on a lot of servers over the previous week or so. So I guess the main point I'm trying to make is I think that this should be a higher priority for the developers allowing people to either transfer or merge servers, or potentially one other solution that I'd thought about. Not that I expect this to be looked at a lot, but uh, there are so recently all the trading posts in the game were kind of like connected as one, which I think helped out a lot. Uh, because now people can purchase things that are in completely different locations. But I think one thing that could be beneficial is there are these world sets, and then there's worlds, which are your specific server. So uh, one thing that could help would be if these sets, which are 7 separate worlds, if instead of just completely merging the servers on a quick timeline, it could be beneficial to have all of these auction houses within a specific world set be linked to one another, because although this would not merge the servers and like congest all the locations in the game with 7 separate worlds, this would allow for there to be much more gold or realistic ways for people to make money and sell things, because the main issue on these low population servers is that it becomes very difficult to sell things or do miscellaneous things for profit in the game when there's so little gold in the game. So these people are kind of stuck with finding ways to organically generate the actual gold rather than things to sell. Uh, so that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and what I thought should be, or at least seems to be, a pretty large issue for a lot of people based on what I've been seeing typed on my server, experienced myself, and just read on Reddit and other places. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about some, and at least put in this video, uh, is about the Watermark System. Um, so recently, uh, in patch 1.1, a lot of the elite mobs were buffed. I actually think it might have been all of them. I'm yet to come across one that's not stronger than it previously was. So, and when I say buffed, I mean to the point that something that it may have taken you 15 seconds to solo previously, like this level 62 over here. I think his name is Adran. Uh, yeah, now those things are pretty much to the point so strong and have so much health that it is not possible to solo them. And if you do, it could take as long as like 6 to 7 minutes. So the reason that I think this is worth talking about, for one, in the patch notes, I think the only mention of it was that vitals on elite mobs were changed. So it wasn't really touched on much. And additionally, there are a bunch of other things that were changed in the game that were not mentioned at all. But yeah, so I think that this is another thing where, depending on the type of player you are, it could push you away from the game entirely if you don't have any option for things to do to level up your watermark solo. And if anyone sees this who doesn't know what watermark is, I'll try to leave a link to a forum post in the description, and I guess just explain it briefly. Whenever you get a drop post level 60, um, you kind of have a specific gear score for every single slot and every single weapon. So uh, they say it's watermarked so that uh, over time you upgrade that little by little by killing these elite mobs, and it gets to the point where it's upgraded all the way to 591, and then you have the potential to receive 600 gear score legendary drops. So the reason that I wanted to talk about this was because now that those things have been buffed to the point that they cannot be soloed, and when I say soloed, I'm not talking about things that are basically exploits like the tentacle in Eternal Pool. I'm more talking about Audron and Fae the Protector, which is this level 64 and Shattered at Sprilla Tower. These used to be viable ways while not completely efficient, they were viable ways to level your gear score all the way from 500 to 591 in Fae the Protector's case, and in Acheron's case, from 500 all the way to 563 at least is the highest level drop that I am aware of that's been received from it. But now that these things can't be done, the only real solo option in the game is looting these supply chests in Shattered Mountain to upgrade your Watermark, which respawn on an hour cooldown. So, and the problem with that on these small servers where people might not have the ability to like team up with people and kill these bosses that are now extremely strong is that if you die soloing that, uh, eventually the cost could really add up. If you die 10 times, it might be 1,000 gold, and it's fairly easy to die there depending on the setup that you're using. Uh, I mean, I still die, and I made my own gear after getting 200 in all the professions. So yeah, and I guess the one of the final things I wanted to mention on this topic is not only does this kind of push the casual or solo player away, the other issue with this is that for a lot of the people that received, um, or not received, but grinded their way all the way from 500 to 591 gear score, their time that they spent doing that, if it took 200 hours, now it might take like 600 or 800 hours based on the current circumstances of the game. And the reason for this is, while those estimates may not be correct, and I'm almost certain are not, the reason it has, uh, or the reason it now will take so much longer is because in any group over five, you actually have a lower chance of receiving a drop. So if anyone grinded their watermark in all slots all the way from 500 to 591 at the tentacle or at this Day the Protector guy, that time has been, or I guess the value of that time they spent has been increased exponentially, not just because you need so many more people now, but because you can't just go do these things whenever you want. You have to coordinate with other people. So while I don't think this is the biggest problem of the world, I think that it is problematic for the game if their goal is to retain as many players as possible. And like I said previously, I really have enjoyed this game and I'd like to see it succeed. Uh, so I think realistically, what could be a beneficial solution for this is to have some kind of alternative where even if it is not uh, completely time efficient, it just gives a solo player an option. So I guess that's pretty much the only other thing that I wanted to talk about. Um, but yeah, this recent patch came with uh, a lot of updates that were either just not mentioned or just not talked on too much. Yeah, and I guess the other interesting thing about the only somewhat viable solo method right now for doing these chests in the towns, like there's a chest here, a supply stockpile that you can't even really do anymore because this elite bear here has been buffed to the point where he's so strong he might take 7 minutes to kill, and that's even if you do a lot of damage and you can dodge every single attack that he uses. But yeah, a lot of these, the interesting thing is the only method, which is looting these supply stockpiles in a lot of these towns. There's actually a bug right now with the chest so that I think it's like they're only dropping weapons or something, or they're just not dropping many items, or I forget what the exact bug was, but some of my friends had mentioned it to me, and I had seen a little bit of stuff on the topic. So yeah, I guess those are the two things that I wanted to talk about and say. Hopefully, I think or hope. I guess I just hope that server transfers are some way of stimulating the economy of these smaller servers becomes a priority for Amazon because I think it's making the game borderline unplayable for a lot of people. And then, yeah, as far as hopefully getting something or some solo method, because I mean, I enjoy doing a lot of the solo stuff previously, but I'm sure there's a large portion of the player base that just has no other option entirely. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. But for the most part, I've really enjoyed the game, and sure, there's plenty of bugs, but it seems like the team is communicating pretty well, and I'm looking forward to seeing if they can get things figured out and headed in the right direction, because I really do think this game has a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see where it goes, even if things aren't that great right now. But yeah, I think maybe after this I'll try to do some kind of loot from like 5,000 orichalcum or uh, 5,000 ironwood trees and try to get some of the legendary materials and just try to get a better idea of what the rates are like based on different luck percentages, because that kind of stuff seems interesting to me. But if you have any other suggestions of something I could make a video on along those topics, I'd be interested in hearing it. And then if you have any opinion on the stuff that I'd mentioned or just some other topic related to the state of the game entirely, I'd be interested in hearing it as well and responding. But yeah, other than that, I think that's it. And I guess I'll see you guys in another video and catch you later.